Solari had never been to Earth before, as a diplomat of the Valari species. She was trained in language, culture, and control, but nothing had prepared her for this strange human world. The sky looked too blue, the people too loud, and everything moved too fast. She stepped off the landing ship, her silver robe flowing around her, and looked around nervously. Cameras flashed, security robots rolled past, and at the end of the path stood a tall human man in dark uniform, Commander Rain. Someone whispered beside her, "Head of Human Security." Rain's eyes were sharp, his face serious, and he didn't smile. "Identification," he said. Flatly as Solari approached, she handed him a glowing chip. Her hands shaking slightly, he scanned it, then looked at her again. "You'll need to pass through the bioscanner." Solari tilted her head, confused. "My species already shared our bio-template," she said, trying to stay calm. "Doesn't matter," Rain replied. "All aliens must pass through naked, no exceptions." Solari blinked, her breath catching. "Naked?" she repeated. He didn't look embarrassed at all. "Standard procedure. The scanner detects hidden threats inside organic material. Your robes must be removed." The air around her suddenly felt heavy. Valeri didn't show emotion easily, but a soft pink glow appeared on Solari's cheeks, a blush, something extremely rare among her kind. She glanced around, saw humans watching with curious eyes, saw the scanner chamber open and glowing. Slowly, she stepped forward, hands trembling. Inside the chamber, warm light surrounded her as she slipped off her robe and placed it on the metal tray. She stood tall, refusing to let the shame break her. But her heart was racing like never before. From behind the glass, Rain watched with a blank expression. The scanner activated, humming softly. Then suddenly, the sound changed, a loud beep. Then red lights flashed. "Alert," the machine announced. "Foreign object detected," Solari gasped. "What?" she whispered, looking down at herself. But she saw nothing strange. Security officers rushed in, surrounding her, while mechanical arms moved over her body. Scanning again, Rain stepped inside the chamber, his face darker now. "You're carrying an unauthorized implant," he said coldly. "Explain." I don't know what implant." Solari stammered, confused and afraid. "I have no implant." "We'll see about that," he said, signaling to the guards. A small projection appeared in the air. It showed a thin object embedded just below her skin, near her spine. Solari stared at it in horror. "That's not mine," she whispered. I never." Rain didn't wait. "Take her for full scan and interrogation," he ordered. "No," she cried. "Wait, please, I swear. I don't know what that is." But it didn't matter. Hands grabbed her arms, and she was led away through the metal halls of the human base. Inside the dark room, she sat alone, wrapped in a basic human uniform, shivering slightly. The implant, whatever it was, had never been there before, or had it? She tried to remember had there. In a moment, a pain, a touch, anything strange before her journey? Nothing came to mind. The door opened, and Rain walked in with a portable scanner. He didn't speak right away, just placed the device near her back. It beeped again, confirming the object. Then he finally looked into her eyes. "You're lucky," he said. "If this thing had transmitted a signal, your people might have started a war." "But I'm innocent," she said softly. "You must believe me." "I don't believe anyone," Rain replied. "But I do investigate everything," he studied the scan data for a few minutes, then frowned. "Strange, this implant isn't Valeri tech. And it's not human either." Solari's eyes widened. "Then who placed it?" Rain didn't answer, but his jaw tightened. "That's what I plan to find out." He stood and turned toward the door, then paused. "For now, you stay here. But the summit, you'll miss it," he interrupted. "Until I know you're not a threat." As the door closed behind him, Solari felt something new, something she hadn't felt in years, fear, and deep down, something else. A question she didn't want to ask, but couldn't silence. What if someone wanted her to be caught? The scanner, the implant, the timing, it all felt too perfect, too planned, and worst of all, she realized something that made her heart freeze. If the implant wasn't hers, then who put it there and why? Asterisk, she woke up with a jolt, gasping for breath. The lights were dim, the air cold, and her mind full of images she didn't remember. Metal hands, strange whispers, a burning pain in her back. Solari sat up quickly on the metal bench in the holding room, heart pounding. Had she been dreaming? Or had someone been inside her head? She looked around, still locked, still alone, still confused. The implant was real, the scan had proved it. But how it got into her body was still a mystery. The door opened, and Rain entered without knocking. Holding a datapad, his face unreadable. "You didn't sleep much," he said. More of a statement than a question. Solari narrowed her eyes. "How could I, when I'm being treated like a criminal?" Rain ignored the tone, sat across from her, and placed the datapad between them. "Let's make something clear," he said. "That implant isn't from Earth, and it's not from Valor either." Her breath caught. "Then where is it from?" He tapped the screen, bringing up a 3D model of the object. "It uses encryption from a species we haven't seen in years, the Drexen." Solari's skin turned pale silver, a Valari sign of shock. "That's impossible," she said quietly. "The Drexen were banished from interstellar space decades ago." Rain leaned forward, his voice low. "That's what we thought." Silence filled the room as both of them stared at the floating image of the implant. "Small, sharp, almost invisible, yet deadly. It's a signal device," he added. "Designed to transmit your location once inside a secure human zone." Solari felt sick. "So I'm a walking target?" "You were supposed to be," Rain said. "But the scanner caught it before it could activate." Solari stood, fists clenched. "You have to believe me. I didn't know it was there. I would never betray this summit." "I believe you," Rain said suddenly, surprising her. "Because you were just as shocked as we were." Solari froze. "Then why lock me up?" Rain stood as well, walking slowly to the door. "Because someone wanted you to be blamed, and I needed to make sure they thought we fell for it." Her eyes widened. "So this was a trick?" He looked back, a safety measure to buy us time. Moment passed between them, no trust yet, but perhaps something close. "Come with me," he said. "We're going to find out who did this." They moved through hidden corridors beneath the Earth Alliance base, avoiding cameras, using codes only top security agents knew. Rain led her into a dark lab, where a few trusted human scientists were already scanning the implant data. "This thing activated for a few seconds before we shut it down," one of them said. "It sent a pulse not strong enough to break our shields, but enough for someone out there to hear it." Rain nodded. "Did you trace the origin?" The scientist looked grim. "Yes, and you won't like it." He turned the screen. Showing a map of Earth's orbit highlighted in red was a stealth object, hiding near one of the old satellite fields. Solari leaned forward. "That's a ship," she whispered. "A Drexen scout. They know she's here," the scientist added. "And they might already know the summit is happening." Rain stared at the screen for a long moment. "Then this wasn't just about framing her," he said. "They want to stop the summit altogether." Solari felt a chill crawl down her spine. "If the summit fails, the peace between humans and Valari will be broken. And war will begin." Rain finished for her. The pieces were coming together now. Someone, possibly from the Drexen, had smuggled a beacon into Solari's body, planted it without her knowing, then sent her to Earth. If it wasn't caught, the summit would be attacked, and both species would blame each other. A perfect plan, Rain. Turn to her. "We need to work together now, even if our leaders don't approve." She nodded, her voice firm. "Agreed." Outside the lab, dark clouds formed over the sky. Thunder rumbling in the distance, Solari looked up, sensing something terrible on the horizon. Then the base lights flickered. Just for a second, Rain noticed it too, his hand moving to his weapon. "Trouble's coming," he muttered, "and we just lost the element of surprise." The lights didn't flicker this time. They died for exactly 7 seconds. The Earth Alliance base was swallowed in total darkness, No sound, no voices, no movement, just stillness. Like the calm before a storm, Solari held her breath, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Rain stood beside her, hand already on his sidearm, unmoving, waiting. Then the emergency lights blinked on, bathing the hallway in red. A voice crackled through the intercom. Security lockdown initiated. Unknown. Breach detected on level 4. Rain cursed under his breath. They're here. Solari's pulse quickened. The Drexen? Or someone working for them, he replied. Either way, they're inside. The illusion of safety was gone, and now they were on the run, inside their own base. Rain didn't wait. He pulled Solari into a side passage, leading her down maintenance shafts and hidden staircases. She followed without question, her trust in him growing with every silent step. They reached a sealed door, one Rain unlocked using a retinal scan. Behind it was a narrow room filled with old tech, dark monitors, and a single glowing screen. This is a ghost room, Rain said, locking the door behind them. No cameras, no network. Completely off-grid. Solari stared at the dusty console. And this is where we save the world. Rain gave a small, tired grin. Hopefully, he powered on the console, revealing a hidden database of surveillance logs and secret communications. Solari leaned over his shoulder, her glowing eyes scanning the files. Then she stopped, pointing. At one screen, there, go back. Rain tapped the command and the image expanded, showing a video feed from a cargo bay 2 days ago. A human officer stood there, shaking hands with a Drexen agent. Barely visible in the shadows, Solari's voice was cold. He's one of your diplomats. Rain nodded slowly. Ambassador Kellen. Betrayal always tasted bitter, but this one stung deeper. Rain leaned back, rubbing his face. So he planted the device in you, and opened the door for a Drexen ship. And he's still at the summit, Solari added. Probably planning the next phase. Rain stood, checking his gear. We need to stop him before he makes his move. Solari touched her back gently. What if I can use the implant? Rain turned, surprised. Use it how? It's inactive now, right? She said, but maybe I can reactivate it for a short time. Just enough to bait the Drexen ship. Rain frowned. That's risky if they lock onto you again. Then, let them, Solari interrupted. Let them come to me, and you take them out. Rain paused, thinking, then slowly nodded. That's bold. I'm done being a victim, she said, eyes fierce. Let's give them something to chase. Within the next hour, they returned to the lab, working with the trusted scientists to temporarily modify the implant. Solari laid face down on the table as a specialist carefully adjusted the signal frequency. Rain stood by her side the whole time, watching every movement, every wire, every flicker of energy. The moment the signal turned on, silent alarms began to flash on the hidden monitors. One of the scientists gasped. We've got them. They're pinging back. Rain leaned forward. Where? The man pointed to a glowing dot on the orbital map. Above Sector 6, cloaked ship, moving fast. Rain turned to Solari. You just lit the fire. She smiled faintly. Then let's burn the traitor with it. But just as they began to plan the next step, another screen flashed with new data. A second signal had just gone active. But not from space, from inside the base. Rain froze. There's another beacon, Solari whispered. Another target. Rain grabbed his gear. 2 signals means 2 attacks. They're not just coming for you now. They're coming for the summit. Solari's voice turned sharp. Then we have to split. Rain nodded reluctantly. You track Kellen. I'll take the team to intercept the incoming ship. Solari stood, adjusting the small human weapon Rain had given her. No more running, she said. No more fear. They looked at each other for a moment, alien and human, unlikely allies, brought together by war and deception. Rain held out his hand, and she shook it firmly. Watch your back, Valari, he said with a smirk. Watch your sky. Human, she replied, smiling back, and then they parted ways, one heading into the heart of betrayal, the other into the mouth of danger. It began with a shadow on the moon. Barely visible, not on radar, not on screens, just a flicker, a whisper of movement where nothing should move. High above Earth, cloaked in silence, a sleek Drexen scout ship adjusted its course. It had received the signal. It had found its target. Commander Rain stood inside a stealth hangar, watching the holographic feed from orbital satellites. His team of elite soldiers stood behind him, silent and tense. "The Drexen ship is moving fast," said the technician. "They'll be in Earth's atmosphere in less than 10 minutes. Rain's eyes narrowed. "They're not here to talk," no one replied. In another part of the base, Solari crept through a quiet corridor, her alien senses alert. She was no longer a diplomat, at least not today. Today, she was a hunter. She moved past a row of guards, used her clearance to enter the main conference wing, and scanned the room with sharp eyes. There he was, Ambassador Kellen, standing near the summit stage, smiling, laughing, shaking hands. He looked like a hero, not a traitor, but Solari had seen the truth. She moved closer, watching his movements, searching for signs of another device, another plan. And then she saw it on his left wrist. Under the skin, a faint glow pulsed, just like her implant had. Her heart tightened. He had another signal beacon. Back in the hangar, Rain suited up. Armored chestplate locking in place, rifle loaded, helmet activated. "Target location locked," said the technician. "They're going to land near the old fusion plant, just outside the city." Rain nodded. "We hit them the moment they touch ground." As his dropship lifted into the sky, he glanced back once toward the horizon, wondering if Solari had made her move. She had. Solari stepped onto the summit stage, walking straight up to Kellen. "Ambassador," she said in a calm voice, "may I have a word?" He turned, surprised. "Miss Solari, I didn't expect you here. Aren't you under observation?" "Not anymore," she said. "Seems I was innocent after all." Kellen forced a smile. "Well, that's good news for both our species." Solari leaned closer, whispering, "You should run now, before I show everyone what's inside your wrist." His smile vanished in one swift move. He grabbed her arm and twisted it, pulling her behind a curtain and drawing a small concealed blade. "Foolish. Alien," he hissed. "You should have stayed locked up." But Solari was faster. Trained in self-defense since childhood, she blocked his attack, swept his legs, and pinned him to the floor. Gasps echoed around the summit as guards rushed in, weapons drawn. Solari raised her voice. "He's the traitor. He's carrying Drexen tech." The guards hesitated, confused, until one of them scanned Kellen's wrist. The glow pulsed red. Alarms went off across the base again. "Unauthorized tech detected," came the voice. "Evacuate the summit immediately." Chaos broke out meanwhile. Rain's ship descended into smoke and fire. The Drexen ship had landed black and sharp like a dagger, hissing as it cut into Earth's soil. Rain's boots hit the ground first. Weapon raised, eyes scanning. The Drexen emerged in armor unlike anything Earth had seen in years. Taller than a man, with silver skin and burning blue eyes. They didn't speak, didn't hesitate. They opened fire. Rain dove behind cover, returning shots, his team spreading out in practiced formation. The Drexen were fast, brutal, silent killers. Rain's voice rang out. "Don't let them reach the base. Hold this line." Lasers tore through the sky as the two forces clashed. At the summit, Kellen had been restrained, and Solari stood before a council of both humans and Valari leaders. "He tried to destroy the peace," she said. "He allowed an enemy ship onto your planet." One Valari elder looked at her. "How do you know this isn't all a trick?" Solari didn't answer with words. She pulled back her robe, revealing the faded scar where the implant had been removed. "I was the bait," she said. "But I refused to be the victim." The room fell silent. Then, the large screen behind them flashed, showing live footage from the battlefield. Rain, wounded, still fighting, holding the line alone. Solari's voice was clear and strong. Now was the time to choose, unity or destruction. The leaders looked at one another. their silence an answer. Above the battlefield, Valari ships entered Earth's atmosphere for the first time, not as invaders, but as allies. Solari stared at the screen, whispering a name, Rain. It started with a handshake, a slow, calculated handshake between two species once ready to destroy each other. Valari and human leaders stood side by side, with cameras flashing, diplomats clapping, and peace hanging by a fragile thread. But behind those smiles, behind the curtains and guards, something darker moved. Solari felt it first. A sudden chill in the air, a shift in sound, like the silence before an explosion. Her instincts screamed, but her voice came too late. The lights went out again, but this time they didn't come back. A blinding flash followed, then chaos. The summit stage exploded in fire and smoke, throwing bodies and metal into the air. Screams echoed through the chamber as leaders hit the ground. Guards drew weapons, and alarms screamed across the base. Solari had been standing just meters from the blast, and now she lay beneath a broken support beam, ears ringing, heart pounding. Someone had attacked the summit. Not just the battlefield, not just orbit here, the heart of peace. She pushed the beam off her back and crawled toward the stage, coughing from the smoke. Kellen, the traitor, was gone. His guards were dead, and his chair empty. He had escaped during the confusion. Solari stood, blood dripping from her arm, and grabbed a weapon from a fallen guard. If she didn't stop him now, there wouldn't be a summit left to save. Meanwhile, deep beneath the burning structure, Kellen sprinted through the emergency corridors, holding a small detonator in his hand. It wasn't over yet. He had one final plan, one final strike to shatter peace forever, in a sealed room, hidden from all sensors. A device hummed, glowing with alien energy. A fusion bomb, not human, not Valeri, but Drexen-built, meant to erase the summit and everyone inside. Back on the surface, Solari ran through the shattered halls, her legs weak, her vision blurry, but she kept moving. She turned a corner and froze. Kellen stood there, staring at her, holding the detonator like a trophy. "I warned them," he said, his voice calm, but no one listened. Solari raised the weapon. "Drop it," he smiled. "You don't have it in you." He was right, she didn't. Not to kill, not out of rage, not even for justice. But she didn't need to, because someone else was watching. A blur moved past the corridor entrance, and in the blink of an eye, Kellen's arm twisted unnaturally, the detonator flying from his grip. He screamed, falling to the ground, and Solari stepped forward. Retrieving the device, behind her, bleeding and bruised, stood Commander Rain, holding a broken pipe like a sword. "I told you," he said with a grin. "Always watch your sky." Solari laughed. A short, tired laugh. "You look like you lost a fight with a meteor." "I won, actually," Rain said, limping toward her, barely. They looked down at Kellen, groaning on the floor, defeated. Solari turned to Rain. "There's a bomb," he nodded. "I know. I saw it on the scans." They moved together through the underground maze, following the signal to the hidden chamber. The bomb sat there, silent, waiting. Solari reached into her robes and pulled out a small crystal chip, glowing with Valari light. "A suppression field," she said. Inserting the chip into the device should freeze the core, for now. The bomb's glow faded, the countdown stopped. Rain exhaled, leaning against the wall. "You just saved everyone." She smiled faintly. "You helped." "Yeah, but you'll get the credit," he joked. They stood there for a moment, surrounded by silence, the smell of smoke and burned metal around them. Then a voice echoed through the halls. "All units report, bomb threat neutralized, traitor in custody." Rain looked at Solari. "Looks like you're officially a hero." She shook her head. "No, I'm just tired." As they walked back to the surface, wounded but alive, they found the summit still standing, damaged, shaken, but not destroyed. The leaders rose to their feet again, seeing the truth in Solari's eyes and in Rain's wounds. This wasn't just about politics now. It was about survival, unity, and trust earned through fire. Later that night, under the stars, Solari looked out the window of the human medical bay. Rain sat beside her, drinking something warm. Wrapped in bandages, she turned to him. "You really came back," he nodded. "Of course, you're the only one who blushes purple when she's angry. I had to make sure you didn't explode," she laughed softly, leaning back in the chair. Outside, the stars glowed brighter than before. But the war wasn't over yet, because far above, in the black silence of space, a second Drexen fleet had begun to move, and this time, they weren't sending scouts, they were bringing the end. The stars were vanishing, one by one. They disappeared behind the shadow of the Drexen fleet, massive. Ships, silent and cold, moved like ghosts across Earth's orbit, each one shaped like a blade, pointed straight at the planet. No more hiding, no more games. The Drexen had arrived for war. Solari stood at the top of the Earth Alliance tower, watching. The sky turned darker. The peace summit was over. The fake smiles and empty speeches gone. Now came the real test beside her. Commander Rain leaned against the railing, still recovering from his injuries, but ready to fight. "They're not sending scouts this time," he said quietly. "They're sending executioners." Solari didn't answer right away, her eyes fixed on the clouds. "We can't face them alone," she said. "Humans and Valari must fight together, or we won't survive." Rain nodded. "And the summit showed them we can trust each other." Barely. A new alert echoed through the base. Global defense protocols activated. Valari and human forces scrambled together for the first time in history. Soldiers lined up in mixed squads. Ships launched in coordinated formations. And captains shared command. It wasn't smooth, but it was real. Solari entered the hangar, greeted by a sleek Valari cruiser modified for human pilots. "This one's yours now," said the technician, handing her the interface keys. "You've earned it." Rain approached in full combat gear, placing a hand on the side of the ship. "You sure about this?" "I'll fly," Solari said. "You guide me." Together they boarded the cruiser, launching into the sky with a flash of light. Above the clouds, the Earth looked small, peaceful, unaware of the danger above, and then the Drexen fleet came into view. It was a wall of death, hundreds of ships, charged and ready. "Transmission coming in," Rain said, adjusting the comms. "From the enemy." A voice echoed through the cockpit, deep, cold, and cruel. "Your alliance is weak. Your species divided. Your end is here." Solari answered with calm fire in her voice. "You failed once before, and you'll fail again." With no more words, the sky exploded. Laser fire lit the darkness as the first wave of Drexen fighters descended. Solari moved like wind through a storm, her ship dancing between enemy beams, blasting targets with sharp precision. Rain coordinated with ground control, calling strikes, guiding units, predicting the enemy's next move. They were two minds in one vessel, and for the first time, Drexen began to fall back, but victory wasn't easy. A massive enemy warship charged its main cannon, locking onto the Earth's surface, targeting the summit site. Rain's eyes widened. "They're going to destroy everything, leaders, diplomats, civilians." Solari gritted her teeth. "Then we stop them now." She pushed the engines beyond safe limits, the ship shaking violently as it climbed toward the warship. "We'll never break that shield from the outside," Rain warned. Solari narrowed her eyes. "Then we go inside, using old Valari tactics and new human technology." She slipped through a maintenance vent near the ship's engines. They entered the Drexen warship, dodging guards, disabling turrets, planting charges. Inside the heart of the beast, Solari placed the final charge, her hands trembling from exhaustion. "Let's go," Rain shouted. Now they ran through fire and smoke, diving back into their cruiser as explosions rocked the enemy ship. The core detonated, and with a blinding flash, the Drexen warship collapsed into itself. Silence followed, then cheers across the Earth, across the fleet, across both species. They had struck a blow, a real, powerful Unforgettable blow. Back at base, Solari and Rain stepped off the ship, burned, bruised, but alive. Crowds gathered, not just soldiers, but civilians, leaders, even children. They didn't cheer for one species, they cheered for both, for hope, for survival. Rain turned to Solari, his voice low. "You think this is over?" She shook her head. "No, but it's the start of something better." Above them, Drexen ships began to retreat, vanishing into deep space, broken, beaten, for now, but war always leaves echoes, and in the silence of victory, Solari wondered, what would echo back? It all began with a blush, not a weapon, not a battle, not a speech, just a single moment of human awkwardness, witnessed by an alien who had never felt exposed before. Solari had been ordered to remove her clothes at a security scanner, and for the first time in her life, she had blushed bright, warm, and unhidden. Now, weeks later, that same alien stood beneath the twin flags of Earth and Valor, as peace was signed in ink, not in blood. Crowds gathered in every major city, screens lit up across planets, and for the first time in history, humans and Valari cheered together. Solari wore ceremonial robes lined with earth fabric, a symbol of unity, and at her side stood Commander Rain. His arms still wrapped in bandages, but his spirit unbroken. The Drexen had retreated into deep space, but the memory of war lingered in everyone's hearts. It was peace, yes, but fragile, still learning to walk. As the peace treaty was signed, the council leader from Earth stepped forward and took the mic. "History," he said, "is not written by the strong, but by the brave." He looked at Solari and Rain, and the audience clapped as their names were spoken like legends. Rain leaned close, whispering, "Looks like we're famous." Solari smiled. "I'd rather be quiet and alive." "Too late for that," he grinned. "You're a galactic hero." Now, she didn't feel like a hero. She felt tired, but she also felt proud, not just for surviving, but for choosing the harder path. Trust over hate. Later that evening, as the sun set behind the Earth Alliance Tower, Solari stood alone on the balcony, watching the stars return. The warships were gone. The skies were clear, and for the first time in weeks, the world felt calm. Footsteps approached, and Rain appeared, carrying 2 cups of steaming tea. "Hot water with leaf extract," he said, handing her one. "Human comfort." She took it, nodding. "Smells strange, tastes worse," he replied, "but it helps." They stood in silence for a moment, looking out over the city below. Lights shimmered like constellations on the ground. Rain spoke first. "You know, when I first saw you at the scanner, I thought you were a spy." Solari laughed softly. "And I thought you were rude and terrifying." "Well," he shrugged, "one of us was right." She looked at him, then away, her cheeks glowing faintly pink again. Rain noticed, smiled, and said nothing. Sometimes silence said more. Solari took a sip of the bitter tea and sighed. "There's still more to come, more dangers out there." "I know," Rain said, "but when it comes, we'll face it together." She nodded slowly, feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope, not just for her people, not just for Earth, but for something bigger, for a galaxy that might finally stop choosing war. In the days that followed, Valari and human scientists began working side by side, sharing technology, building defenses, not to conquer, but to protect. Joint academies opened, translators became teachers, and former enemies became curious neighbors. Solari traveled between worlds, not as a diplomat, but as a bridge. Children in both systems learned her name, not as a warrior, but as the one who stopped a war by being vulnerable. One news program called her the alien who blushed, and the name stuck like sunlight on skin. At first she hated it. Then she accepted it, because it was true. And sometimes a blush could do more than a bullet ever could. One evening, years later, as she stood beside a memorial built in the shape of the Earth Valari crest, Rain arrived with gray in his beard and that same old grin. "You still get nervous near scanners?" he teased. Solari laughed. "Only when you're watching." He handed her a small crystal box. Inside it was the interface chip from the old Valari cruiser they once flew together. "For old times," he said. She took it gently, her fingers brushing his for a second longer than needed. Then once again, her cheeks glowed pink. Rain chuckled. "Still saving galaxies with that blush, huh?" And she smiled, eyes soft, voice calm. "Maybe," she said. "But this time, I didn't come here to save the galaxy." Rain raised an eyebrow. "No?" She looked at him, her face open, honest, human in the only way that mattered. "No," she whispered. "Just you."